Tower of God. Could this be this year's Demon Slayer? So what's up guys, Foxen here. Let's talk Tower of God. This anime has gotten the most attention this season, since most things are delayed. But are you liking Tower of God? Could it be a game changer? Is it anime of the year material? And how about Japan? Does Japan even like this new anime? Oh yes, I'm diving into this topic too, which I don't see anyone touching. So be sure to use your death march on the like and let's jump into this. First off, what even is Tower of God? Tower of God is one of the new anime that Crunchyroll is producing, aka funding. They have been part of the production committee for anime before, like Shield Hero or Goblin Slayer. But this time they're going up a level. You got Crunchyroll plus Webtoon coming together into this collab to make some anime. Crunchyroll has actually announced several upcoming anime titles plus anime-inspired properties. The original Tower of God is actually a decade-running webtoon, which is really just this Korean digital comic. That's right, it's not a manga, not a light novel, it's not even Japanese. I mean, just this is pretty fascinating. Can you still even call this an anime? This anime is being made in Japan by a Japanese anime studio with Japanese staff, voice actors, and so on, in case there was any doubt. Also, don't forget about that Marvel plus Madhouse collab a few years back. That gave you some Marvel anime too. They were kinda meh. As for the Tower of God story, this actually focuses on main character Bam and Rachel. These two little lovebirds were born in this tower world. One day the blonde hair left to get into the tower. Then you got the protagonist over here, Bam, who desperately tries to follow her into this tower world. Of course, behind there's a lot of mystery. What is this actual tower? You really only know it's a tower with countless floors. Once you get in, you gotta complete this test by this floor admin. Then you can proceed to the next floor location. So far this whole series feels super shonen, which means this story might be right up your alley. So let's get into it. There are a ton of reasons why you should be watching Tower of God, especially if you haven't started this tower climb. If you haven't heard anything about Tower of God, you may have heard this comparison, it being the One Piece for webtoons. That is definitely some high praise. At the same time, it also sets up this massively high bar for hype and expectations. Forget about the webtoon. Can the anime adaptation reach that? Still to be determined. On the bright side, the One Piece comparison at least reassures you of two important things from the anime. First off, quality. With hundreds of new anime coming out each year, for Tower of God you don't have to be too worried about whether it's worth your time or not. And two, a pretty long series. Since you've seen other shonen anime like One Piece, Bleach, My Hero Academia, Boruto's Dad, you know what to expect. On the flip side, if you're the type of person that doesn't want to wait until you get married, got your second kid, or first divorce, before that anime that you love is done, you're gonna know right from the get-go. Just starting off, Tower of God already has a huge advantage. You got Crunchyroll promoting the hell out of it, combined with other big anime like Re:Zero or SAO that got delayed out of the spring anime season. It practically has the anime season to itself. Don't like it? Think it's kinda meh? Too bad. I bet a lot of you will still watch it since it hasn't been delayed. You know, that captive audience. Anyway, another strong part for Tower of God is the soundtrack. You got Kevin Penkin returning to add that magical musical element. I know you've enjoyed his work from Made in Abyss and Shield Hero. I'm telling you, keep an eye on him. So getting into it, I talked about the strong points for Tower of God, now the flip side. Let's now view the potential issues for this anime, and feel free to add any of your own problems. First off, the massive hype. Ah yes, that double-edged sword. You are hearing all this colossal build-up for this tower, but then it may fall flat for you when you finally jump into it, or even if you're already watching and then reach the end of season 1. I don't know about you, but I've had plenty of anime build up so high up for me, but then when I checked them out, they failed to meet those expectations. I've already seen some complaints about the story here and there, and I do predict more of this happening as the anime gets into the season 1 finale. Yes, I definitely say that as someone that has read the Korean comic. Talking about the upcoming finale, Tower of God is actually only going to be a short 13-episode season. Season 1 should be covering the full first season of the Korean comic. The issue here involves the short length, which really is a common problem for a lot of anime. There really is only so much you could do in 13 episodes, not to mention a lot less time to get your fans invested. I'm just going to put it out there and say that I was pretty lukewarm with Tower of God Season 1 for the webtoon comic. Season 2 on the other hand, something happens. Oh, at that point I'm like, okay, you got my attention, but too bad, that's gonna be season 2 material. Switching to a different side of the short season, you may have heard some webtoon readers voice their concerns already. Oh, they're shoving a lot of content into 13 episodes. Unfortunately, there is weight with some of those concerns. At this point, Tower of God actually reminds me of a light novel anime, in that there's chunks of info and detail cut out for the anime version. This includes several character dots, unfortunately. I will be the first to agree with a lot of the changes for the anime. For example, early on you had a lot of terms and other info being dumped at you right at the very beginning. Later this info is repeated more than a few times in fact. Tightening this stuff is always a plus for the anime. On the other hand, a few episodes into Tower of God, you got key details chopped off. This is important details like the ranking system, the people, the skills, the world of the actual tower. Even if you discount how important world building is, this type of world lore is sprinkled around to get your attention, so that you're curious and want to find out more. More than a few times I do feel that the anime falls flat on this, which is weird since it was originally there. It's like you almost got to the finish line. I'm also not sure why the anime is making it so you're in this further constant state of mystery. I do think a good chunk of anime fans won't like the confusion or lack of explanation. Really quickly, sticking with the world building topic, I'm almost done with the season 2 of the webtoon, so even I could talk about how I had more than a few issues with how Tower of God tries to flesh out its world. It takes a good while for info regarding the structure of the tower and floors to be given to you. Even then, the society of the tower and each floor feels much too vague. You don't really get a good grasp of any one place, which honestly is terrible. You do have visuals that do help with the story. You would think that would be similar to a manga, but unlike a manga, the backgrounds and anything that's not a character isn't anywhere as detailed. I'm assuming this is due to it being the webtoon format, which is more specialized for mobile, combined with the fact that being much easier to add color when there is not that much detail. I have even been told that you get more information or hints from the actual Tower of God world, from author interviews, author notes, or even his own blog. In other words, you have important lore info available outside of the already long comic. Normally this wouldn't be an issue, but I do feel a lot of this should have already been in the actual story. By the way, quick disclaimer here, just being fair. I am comparing this to other anime, manga, or light novel stories. Webtoons are a completely new thing for me, and I really have no idea whether this is usually the case for other webtoon stories. Anyway, getting into this being a Korean-sourced anime production. I am personally pretty familiar with the whole anime production side of things. I've even visited a studio in the past. But this is a special case. I'm not really sure how involved the author would be in this situation. The author isn't even in Japan. On the flip side, there is a really strong point here for the anime version. I do think the anime is capable of giving more structure to this world. Just watching the first few episodes available, you actually get a sense of where you are. The anime thankfully has been able to add much more connective tissue that was needed, I think. Especially at the beginning. You are getting more visuals to understand the world, despite a lot of this meant to be a mystery for you within the season 1 anime. Alright, so perfect time to get into the animation topic. I'm sure a lot of you will be mixed on this too. So just being direct, the animation for this anime is a bit weird. Even if you've only seen the first episode or a few minutes, you'll notice something unique. There is like no shading at all. This I found pretty interesting. It actually reminds me of a lot of regular American cartoons. Stuff like SpongeBob or Rick and Morty, maybe even The Simpsons. Honestly, I'm not sure why they chose to go with this anime design style. I've already seen more than a few complaints about this supposedly being bad animation or it looking cheap, which is why I'm super curious. How do you feel? Do you like the animation? Is it an issue for you? Do you think it's cheap looking, or does it make it more unique? To some extent, I can't blame anyone being put off by the looks alone. I wouldn't say it's distracting as this full CG anime that some people like to hate on. A good example being the new Ghost in the Shell anime. But at least for me, every now and then a scene or character may awkwardly stand out. Although I do emphasize a minor nitpick for me. I do potentially see this not aging as well as other anime might with a different style. I did mention the Demon Slayer comparison early on. Unlike that anime, Tower of God does not have some super high quality animation to further elevate it. And screw it, I'm gonna say it. For some scenes, I actually do prefer the comic panels. Yes, I'll give it to you and say, some of the faces here and there look weird or funny at times, but so did other series like Attack on Titan early on. Like most popular manga, the art keeps on improving as the series progresses, which brings up a different point. I am super curious if they're gonna keep the same art style for future seasons. Talking about future sequels, Tower of God really reminds me of other anime like Promised Neverland or Vinland Saga, where you got a strong intro into the world for the first season. But most of this is really just a setup for the actual story. The true story begins going forward into the future seasons, the future arcs, which is why Tower of God in season 2 is where it'll really shine, especially if it's 20 plus episodes. Anyway, let's talk about Japan. Do you think Tower of God is popular here in Japan? Definitely pause the video and post your thoughts. This is something I don't see anyone talking about. Looking into the various things I'm about to get into, I don't really see Tower of God taking off in Japan. Recall Crunchyroll being behind this. Crunchyroll is completely unknown in Japan. It's pretty much blocked for Japanese people. To be fair, the Tower of God anime is available on other Japanese streaming sites. The real issue goes back to this being a Korean comic. You might know about the, let's say, sensitive history between Japan and South Korea. If you don't, ask Google Sensei. Living in Japan over a year, I've noticed how K-pop and Korean food is very popular here. But it pretty much stops at that. But then you have other Korean stuff in general that's not too well received. Even things like Samsung phones aren't really a hit. The Samsung name is just left off. Completely anecdotal for this video, but I did ask my Japanese friends here. Forget about not even hearing about the Tower of God anime. Not a single one had ever heard the name Tower of God, or the Japanese equivalent. I further asked if they even knew what a webtoon was. Nope, nah. Honestly, I'm not sure how much of this is due to a lack of interest, webtoons themselves not promoting themselves heavily in Japan, or even manga companies trying to keep the focus on domestic Japanese comics. In other words, manga. I did try to find the actual Tower of God comic in Japanese. Surprisingly, but perhaps I shouldn't be surprised, only half of it is even translated in Japanese. Another part of the low interest in Japan might go back to Crunchyroll being at the head. I think a lot of anime fans don't know about this. You may have heard about how weekly running anime are promos for the source material. The thing about that is that most anime here airs super late at nighttime. Not really a good promotion. What serves as actual awareness for the anime or property are various advertisements placed in Japan while the anime is airing. Great examples are commercials, or ad placements are billboards, trains, buses, or anywhere else that gets a lot of foot traffic. These type of things will get your attention, especially for newcomers. For this video, I actually went to various popular spots here in Tokyo. Spots where you often see these ad placements on buildings. For example, for My Hero Academia, that was in frickin' Shibuya. But then for Tower of God, I did not see a single one. In comparison, I did see some for other spring anime. I saw a few for the Kingdom anime. I even saw one for that lovely CGI Ghost in the Shell anime in Shibuya. Oh yeah, Netflix is paying the big bucks for that spot. Usually it would be companies in the production community that would be pumping money into the advertisement. Take something like Demon Slayer, SAO, My Hero Academia. The common factor, all of these properties are Japanese. Any advertisement for the actual anime not only promote the anime, but various merch, the games, the source material, card games, any tie-in food items, in other words, a lot of things. Then you look back at Tower of God, it really only makes sense. Crunchyroll either wouldn't care or wouldn't have the funds to further promote this in Japan. I'll very briefly touch on this too. All of this isn't even getting into how many anime fans may not be interested in something non-Japanese. I surely don't know how big or small that could be, and definitely be sure to share your own feelings on the matter. Do you take issue about this being Korean origin? I do have a suspicion that it's not a huge chunk, but people are going to get more vocal about this as time goes on. This also isn't even touching on some hardcore webtoon fans that may not be too pleased with the way that the anime is handling their beloved property. You can be sure those people will get vocal sooner or later. Putting together the full picture for Tower of God, is it going to be 2020's Demon Slayer? In terms of quality and getting that massive worldwide love by everyone? Definitely not. The short 13-episode season will hold it back. Combined with low hype coming from Japan, Tower of God will not see the success like Demon Slayer. Instead, I actually see it resembling much more My Hero Academia Season 1. Anime fans enjoyed the My Hero Academia start for what it was. But in a similar fashion, Tower of God will really get kicked off with the sequel season. Season 2 will truly have that explosive potential. On the other hand, if you're instead looking at a potential anime of the year for 2020, you know Crunchyroll is behind their own Crunchyroll Awards. I don't see how they wouldn't massively push their own produced anime. I see Tower of God at the very least guaranteed to be in the Anime of the Year discussion for that award. And hey, you all saw what happened in 2019. They freaking snubbed Attack on Titan Season 3. Assuming no delays, you still have big hitters like ReZero, SAO, Attack on Titan Season 4. I wouldn't be too shocked if a few of those are not in the actual Anime of the Year discussion. Keep a watch out for that. Either way, at the end of the day, all of us anime fans win. You get a +1 enjoyable anime for the year. More coming too. I am predicting Tower of God may not be the actual supermassive success that Crunchyroll wants it to be, but it'll be enough. Enough when combined with all of their new anime projects. That'll justify funding future seasons. Besides, imagine no Season 2 for Tower of God. Now that would be embarrassing. Especially with Crunchyroll already funding future Shield Hero sequels. Don't forget about Funimation too, wanting to play catch up with the anime making business. I am super curious to see how they come into this game. But anyway, that was just an anime theory. Share any opinions below. Are you liking Tower of God, or is it overhyped? Be sure to subscribe since I am planning to make more Tower of God content. Go ahead and check out my recent Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer video, and I'll see you guys later.